Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yep.
And thank you very much, everybody, for coming here tonight. I can't believe this night is finally here. I've been dreaming of it since I was 5 years old. Although when I was 5, I thought, write a few words on a page and there you go. But my dream has grown with me and going into this. So thank you to all of you for being here tonight. And thanks, Susan, for launching the book, and thank you to Kevin for facilitating the launch here tonight. I want to thank my family and friends for all of their support, and thank you, Mum, Martina, and Fiona, and some of my other family members who couldn't be here tonight for being among my first readers. Thanks to you too, Susan, for being among my first readers. My first readers were, they offered me great criticism and helped this book become what it is today. I wish to thank my husband Matt, of course, because he is always my very first reader. I don't need anything else in the universe without him first getting his seal of approval. And he's always my technical support, which is extremely important. I very nearly lost the first draft of Passion Killer, and he saved it from wherever it was. I would also just like to mention my dad. This book is dedicated to his memory, and I know he's looking down tonight and wishing you success. I'll just tell you a little bit about the story. As Susan said, it's a story of unrequited love, jealousy, obsession, passion and murder. It revolves around a group of friends in a small town in County Galway. Sylvia arrives home one evening to find her boyfriend in a pool of blood. The detectives launched an investigation into the murder, but as the story unfolds, the friends discover that one of them is suspected of being the murderer, the main suspect, and they decide to try to discover who killed Rick themselves. So as time goes on, they discover secrets and lies that test their relationship to the point of breaking, and in order to cast suspicion away from Alex, they started to suspect a myriad of acquaintances. So will they succeed in finding out who killed Rick before Alex is put away for something he perhaps didn't do, or will they find out that Alex isn't who they thought he was? Now I will read you a little bit from the story. Sylvia is in the Gordon station waiting for Alex to come out and being questioned. Sylvia got up to walk around the room and started to read the posters that were scattered around the walls. Road safety, neighbourhood watch, victim support group. She figured that by the time they left, she'd have a path well worn between her chair and the copy machine and would know every word of each of the posters off by heart. Sylvia cast her mind back to the last night she had spent with Rick and the horror of discovering his body. On Friday night after they had seen the last of their guests into the taxi, Sylvia started gathering glasses and sweet wrappers. Leave that, love, I'll get it in the morning, Rick said as he came up behind her and encircled her in his arms. Sylvia turned into his embrace and said, thanks, I'll give you a hand before I go to Galway. There's no need. You head off early so that you'll be back early. Sylvia gave him a look of incredulity. You do know that no matter how early I go, I won't be home any earlier, I'll just spend more money. Rick laughed and pulled her up with him. Rick came up the stairs. When they got to the bedroom, he pulled her to him as he said, come here, my lovely shopaholic. Have I told you lately how much I love you? Yes, but I think I can stand to hear it again. Sylvia murmured against his lips as she wound her fingers through his thick, wavy brown hair. She wondered, not for the first time, how she had gotten so lucky. She often thought that it must have been something she'd done in a previous existence that had drawn this sweet and loving man into her life. The next evening, upon arriving home from shopping, Sylvia entered the sitting room and stopped short as she saw a pool of blood seeping out from under the armchair. Dropping her shopping bags where she stood, she rushed over to the armchair. Reaching it, she stopped up, afraid of a sight would greet her. She went around to the front of it and screamed. She dropped to her knees beside the corpse of her boyfriend and took his hand in hers. She lifted his fingers to her lips, her hands going cold as she touched him, her tears falling onto his hand as she looked into his face, which was frozen grey in an expression of shock. She didn't want to think about how horrifying his last moments must have been, but the expression on his face told her that he hadn't seen the knife coming towards him before it was plunged into his chest. She hoped that death was instant, that he didn't have time to feel any pain. Later, realization would come to her that he must have felt some pain as the knife tore through skin, flesh, tissue and bone to pierce his heart before it stopped beating. Before he stopped feeling. Sylvia didn't know how long she knelt at Rick's side before getting up to the ring to ring the guard, but when she did so, darkness had fallen. She gave an account of what she had come home to find, but it didn't sound to her own ears as if it was her voice. It sounded as if she was hearing someone else speaking from a distance, someone broken-hearted whose voice sounded muffled and disjointed. Hanging up the phone, she went to the window, unable to make herself go to Rick's side. Rain coming down against the window while Sylvia listened to the for the car. As the sirens waved closer to the house, she leaned into the pane of glass, looking into the distance, trying not to see the reflection of the scene in the sitting room behind her. Seeing instead the lights of the town a few miles away. As their house was on a hill, it afforded them a spectacular view of the town on one side, the lake on the other. Her gaze moved to the flashing lights of the sirens as she followed the progress of the winding road to the house. When the car came to a stop, two guards in what looked like two detectives dressed in suits emerged from the car, bending their heads against the rain, and she found herself at the door without being sure how she got there. The introductions were lost on Sylvia. All she could do when asked what had happened was to stammer the response that she didn't know. She pointed to the sitting room as she clasped onto the bottom steps of the stairs, where she stared into space, not seeing or hearing anything going on around her. She shut herself off from her surroundings, so it was the hushed conversations with the guards, the arrival of the forensics team, and the hustle and bustle of the crime scene investigation all seemed like they were happening elsewhere. After some time, the female detective joined her and said, "Sylvia, I'm sorry to have to inform you that the man in your sitting room is dead. Did you know him?" Sylvia stared into the woman's face with eyes that were glazed over. Of course she knew he was dead, but hearing it confirmed by an official somehow made it real. It gave her a jump back into reality, made the sounds coming from the sitting room closer, made the face in front of her own come into focus. She stared into the broad, sincere face of the detective, and wished she could borrow the strength etched there from the square jawline to the solemn grey eyes. She replied, "Yes, Rick, was my boyfriend. We were going to spend the rest of our lives together." Then in between sobs, "How can I live without him?" Thank you very much.